I'm Paul Oakes, and the student that I did the case study on this class was for a student named Sydney. She's a 10th grader. Sydney's been diagnosed with ADHD, anxiety disorder, and PTSD. She does a really good job in a small group environment. She's in a C setting right now. She has, I think, 13 other kids in her class that she works with. Sydney's the kind of kid that when you give her the work and you show her one-on-one, she masters it. Put her in a setting with 12, 13 kids, and the minute lunch comes up, and she will lose focus, right? So the whole idea is to try to get her to refocus and to stay on task. It's been sure we have a goal set for her as of last year that was to get 90% accuracy on all complex problems using real numbers and integers. Again, Sydney's one of those kids that when she learns it, she can teach it, but it's just a matter of getting her to want to learn it and how to get her to kind of buy into what I'm doing. So the intervention that we did was I wanted to get her into a smaller group setting. Right now she's 13 in a population of 13, and I wanted to get her into a smaller setting than just 13. I think anywhere between 4 and 5 kids around her gives her a good chance to learn. So I wanted to try to incorporate some of my lesson plan and split that 13 up into smaller groups and gave her the opportunity to kind of focus on what she was doing with less people and less distraction. I chose to do the SRSD model with the lesson plan. So the whole idea was that I was going to model it, and then I engage the kids in my lesson. They do a lot of asking questions. I do a lot of intentional interaction with them where I'm asking, picking on kids, ones that are kind of drifting off, but with their specific lesson plan. In terms of the study, I wanted to pick on her more often. I used a different seating arrangement when she was in for this lesson, where I sat her up front, closer to the front, so she wasn't in the back, distracted by any kind of movement. So I intentionally moved her up to the front of class. I modeled the lesson and then engaged the kids. And then I walked around while they did the lesson, and before they left, I did an exit ticket, right? So it was the whole model it, support it, and then have them look independently, and then assess. The formative assessment came through the exit ticket. The idea with the lesson was I wanted them to do, I'm trying to introduce the quadratic formula, and a lot of them struggle with the arithmetic that goes into the discriminant portion, right? So the quadratic formula looks like this. It's negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, they can get the negative b part and get the 2a part. I did a lesson previously where they're identifying a, b, and c, right? Out of a, x squared plus bx plus c. So just to understand the framework, they already knew how to identify the coefficients a, b, and c. Okay? So I wanted them to, I made the mistake of jumping right in and giving them this, thinking they knew how to do the order of operations. And it occurred to me that after a little bit of time that they were struggling mostly with this part right here, right, which we call the discriminant. So what I did was sort of column approach to identifying the discriminant, right? And I sat up in the class the day after the lesson plan, or the day after the lesson, and I had them do a simple problem. Maybe I wrote 2x squared plus 4x plus 5, something like that, right? And then what I did was I developed a column approach. So I wrote b squared, put that in a column. And I wrote 4ac. And then I wrote b squared minus 4ac. And then finally to the square root of b squared.
Oh, I see.
4. Okay. See, right? So I just broke down the way that I kind of was hoping they would go through. And again, my mistake thinking that they would automatically go into the discriminant knowing order of operations, and after I tried to introduce that, it occurred to me that I needed to step back, especially with Sydney. Sydney's really good at arithmetic, but trying to get her to her goal of being able to do complex problems at 90% accuracy, I felt like this was the way to go. Because she knows the arithmetic behind it, she just couldn't do the order. So I try to break down the complex operation into more simple. Right? So you take b squared, which is 16, 4 squared, 4 times 8 times C, 4 times 2 is 8, times 5 is 40. And then see, let's do a minus here, actually, sorry. Right, so you do negative 40. 16 minus 40 is 56, minus negative 40 b squared. So you have 16, sorry. 16 minus negative 40. So 16 plus 40. Which is 56. And the square root of 56. At this point, I was able to jump off. And do some things with Sydney, where we're simplifying radicals. So this lesson kind of spun off in a couple more complex lessons. And then what I did was at the end was I handed out a worksheet. So I did this 3 or 4 problems I had predetermined. It ended up being more simple ones. We ended up with like square root of perfect squares. So we were getting nice whole numbers. And then I was able to give this. I actually wrote out a worksheet that had the columns on it with all this set up top. And then I would write the 5 problems on the board, and then I let them go. And I walked around for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and Sydney especially was really good at identifying. Once she saw this, she was able to break it all down and come up with the whole numbers that would get the solution. I gave her an assessment about a week after the lesson, and she scored a 99% on it. She didn't do one negative she got wrong. But overall, she excelled. She showed a mastery of the subject matter, and she was done. So that was my lesson, and that was my game plan, was to get her to get towards that 90% accuracy. The idea was to get her into smaller groups, to model it, support it, then have her do it independently, and she was able to execute. So that's what I did for the last 7 weeks. Thanks.